Good afternoon. Today, the United States of America is changing its relationship with the people of Cuba. In the most significant changes in our policy in more than 50 years, we will end an outdated approach that for decades has failed to advance our interests, and instead, we will begin to normalize relations between our two countries. Through these changes, we intend to create more opportunities for the American and Cuban people and begin a new chapter among the nations of the Americas.
All right, now we turn the page. All right, joining us now is Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard and ABC News contributor. Hello, Bill.
How are you?
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what country I'm living in and what happened to our system of government. Another day, another directive. USA Today pointed out it's not only the executive orders, but it's the memorandums that he issues, and you put them all together, he's got more than any other president in history. But what about this one?
Look, I think there are reasonable policy debates about exactly how well the embargo with Cuba is working, and some people, including good conservatives who hate dictatorships, think you could do a better job trading with them than embargoing them and normalizing relations. Also, you have embassies in a lot of places you don't like, but the rhetoric, the signal that this has sent, the failure to seemingly to get any concessions from the Cubans to speak of, that's depressing. And the way President Obama put it in the clip you just put, he didn't say, look, this was important during the Cold War. We stood up to a Soviet-backed dictatorship. Now this is a different era. He made it sound like it's always been a mistake. Cuba was always a great place. We're just doing something nice for the people of Cuba, he said. What about the government of Cuba? Aren't we giving them kind of a shot in the arm? And isn't it still a pretty brutal dictatorship?
Absolutely, and he went on to say, hey, this was 50 years ago, and look, we trade with China and Vietnam and other bad people, basically. And then he, says, hey, by the way, I think that the best way to change Cuba is by having our people interact with the Cuban people on the streets of Cuba. But that's not going to change Cuba. They're not going to let people out of prison. They're not going to stop the torture. They're not going to stop the hunger. They're not going to stop, telling people what they could read and can't read. It's just he knows he's making this up.
Well, they're probably not, unfortunately. But this is Obama's foreign policy. Lady Abrams had a good piece at our website at weeklystandard.com. He consistently, and this is what he's doing in his last 2 years. He feels liberated. No more elections. He doesn't control either House of Congress. Why not just go for it? People say Obama's sort of incompetent, feckless, irresolute. There's some truth to all that. But he knows what he wants, and he wants to recast our relationship with our opponents and enemies. He wants to be nice to them. This Cuba thing is a model for what he hopes to do with Iran. And of course, he doesn't want to be very accommodating to our traditional allies and friends and democracies. Someone pointed out to me that we're going to have an embassy in Havana before we have an embassy in Jerusalem.
That's absolutely true, and that really sums it up. And we'll probably wind up putting sanctions on Israel as we lift sanctions against Cuba.
Well, that's a good point. I shouldn't even think about that side of it. Yeah. And meanwhile, we're busy toying with the idea of sanctions on Israel because they're building in North Jerusalem or something, and we're lifting the sanctions with Cuba. Really wonderful.
Feel free to quote me, Bill, anytime.
We'll do that.
Anyway, all right, so let's move on. This tortured nonsense, and I got to tell you, I just admired the way Dick Cheney. Here's a guy. He's got a heart transplant going. His health is certainly questionable. He went on every morning show on Sunday, and he went on Bret Baier the Friday before, and he stuck up so eloquently and brilliantly for what he did and Bush did and the CIA did and John Yoo did and all of them, and saying, hey, you want to know what torture is? My definition? It was those people deciding whether or not to be burned to death or jump to their death on 9/11.
Well, and then some of the Vietnam POWs talked about real torture, not something that's unpleasant, very unpleasant, granted, but that you recover from, and it seems to have no lasting effects at all. But I agree about Cheney. I admire him stepping up. I wish more Republican leaders and presidential candidates had stepped up. And Bobby Jindal, who was nice enough to make a statement, I thought that was good. But his statement was all about defending Bush. I guess he thinks Republicans are loyal to Bush. It wasn't about defending the people working at the CIA and in the military, for that matter, who got asked to do a very difficult job and tried to do it to the best of their ability. They're the people who need to be defended. Cheney did defend them eloquently. I wish more Republicans, if you want to be president of the United States, you've got to make clear, I think, where you stand on something like this.
Right, and maybe they didn't look at the poll, but the poll that was out yesterday showed that only 28, the NBC News Wall Street Journal poll showed that only 28% of those polled disapproved of the tactics, said they were not right, and 51% said that under the circumstances they were right. The others had no opinion. So overwhelmingly, again, you watch the mainstream media, you think you're a loony bin, you're out of touch. No, as usual, they are out of touch.
They are, but again, I think I admire the American people for having such good common sense on this, despite the media. But again, the Republican politics can't all wait for the polls. And I talked to one actually young senator who he just was busy with the end of the session. No one asked him really his opinion. He sort of regrets that he didn't step forward even a little harder, a little more forcefully. He was kind of waiting to be asked, and he didn't get asked. But really, if you're running for president, it's the kind of thing you should step up on.
Absolutely.
And I don't really think any of them really has much, and I'm a little disappointed in that. There'll be plenty of chances in the future, but this is the kind of core thing, though. Are you going to get spooked by political correctness and the prospect of media criticism and international lawsuits and so forth, not to do what you have to do and not to authorize other people to do what they have to do to defend the country and fight our enemies?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And, Republicans are often too quiet on too many things. Bill, thank you for joining us as usual. A happy Hanukkah to you and a happy New Year. We'll speak to you soon.
Happy Hanukkah and here to you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bill Kristol, ladies and gentlemen. All right, up next, Dr. Larry Sabato. But first, actor John Wayne's legendary career. It spans over 3 decades. And during that time, he was nominated for the Academy Award 15 times. He won it once. Let's take a look back at his win with this hour's American Moment.